Hey Bullets YouTube channel.
Hurry up, now tell us why you're here.
Brad Keselowski will be quitting Piston Cup racing for the rest of the season, and then Clint Shiftwright said this: I wouldn't be too worried either. And then Ricky Speedhouse Jr. would complain because Ernie Gearson went first in qualifying, and as a result, Ricky Speedhouse Jr. will be suspended this race. And Greg People would have a practice crash. Oh no! And then Gearson Motorsports would have a lot of their engines stolen! And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Brian Brooks would wreck each other out in practice. Now they're both out! Now, onto the starting grid where Speedy Comet will start at pole position with Cal Weathers to his outside. Row 2 has Lightning McQueen and Bobby Swift starting to his outside. And Row 3 has Kevin Harvick hoping to improve on last race, and Jimmy Cables to his outside. Row 4 has Martin Truex Jr. and Kurt Busch-Tire to his outside. Now onto Row 5, where Rex Revler will start on the inside, with Carl Clutchin starting to his outside. Row 6 has Matthew Overdrive, who did quite well in practice, with Ricky Axel to his outside. Row 7 has Darren Ledfoot and Brick Yardley. Which car will do better this race? Row 8 has Ralph Carlo and TG Castlenut. I wonder what they'll do this race. And now on to Row 9, where Todd Marcus will be starting alongside Maury Clutchburn. And in Row 10, we have Marcus Cranksler starting alongside Terry Cargis, who did not wreck anyone in practice. And Row 11 has Bobby Rotesta and the jumper Doug Throttleman, who started second last race. Row 12 has Ponchi Wipeout and Reb Meeker, who did better in qualifying compared to previous weeks. And Row 13 has Dino Draftski and Buck Beeringley making his second start this season. Row 14 has Floyd Mulvihill and Tony Gassworth also making his second start this season. Row 15 has Brian Sparks and Lane Locke to his outside. Row 16 has Kyle Carson, who did not do well during qualifying, and Rev Rodages to his outside. Row 17 has Trevor Turnrev making his first start this season, and Tommy Highbanks to his outside. Row 18 has Dirksen D'Agostino and Parker Breakston making his second start this season. Row 19 has Ernie Gearson and Arthur Carstro, who surprisingly qualified for this race. Row 20 has Bruce Miller and James Garrison! What are you doing back here? And in Row 21, we have the Garrison Motorsports teammates Phil Tankson and Jack DePost. And starting in 43rd is Chip Gearings, another Garrison Motorsports racer. I wonder how much the engines being stolen had to do with the Garrison Motorsports racers doing badly in qualifying. And these 10 cars, some of whom Garrison Motorsports racers, among many others, failed to qualify for this race. Now, let's get on to the race. Speedy Comet would lead the first 7 laps of the race, but on lap 3, James Garrison would be out on lap 3 because of engine failure. And the car responsible for stealing the engines from Garrison Motorsports has been caught by Piston Cup officials and will now be banned from attending Piston Cup races for life. Lightning McQueen would take the lead on lap 7 and lead until lap 10, where he'd lose the lead to Carl Clutchin, who would lead all the way until lap 11, where Terry Cargis would be 20th as of lap 11, where he wrecks! Who does he wreck? Martin Truex Jr. Why, Terry Cargis? And then Brick Yardley would take the lead after the restart and lead until lap 16, where he'd lose the lead to Cal Weathers. He would lead until lap 19, where Lightning McQueen would retake the lead. He would lead until lap 30. Meanwhile, Rex Revler would give Kevin Harvick the bump and run on lap 28, and then on lap 30, Doug Throttleman would jump over Kevin Harvick, and then later that lap, on lap 30, Bobby Swift would take the lead. He would lead until lap 35, where he'd lose the lead to Ricky Axel, who would lead until lap 37. But Tony Gassworth would use the wall on lap 37, and this would result in Tony Gassworth taking the lead on lap 37, leading until lap 41, where he is still in first place, but does he wreck someone? He wrecks Trevor Turnrev and himself. Why? And then Kyle Traction would steal equipment from Kevin Harvick's pit stall on lap 41, Jimmy Cables would take the lead after the restart and lead for 6 laps. Meanwhile, Kevin Harvick would be out on lap 45 because of ninja failure. And then, Kyle Traxon has been banned for life from attending Piston Cup races because he stole equipment from Kevin Harvick's pit stall. Good job, Piston Cup officials! You're actually banning the bad cars! Rex Revler would push Kurt Busch-Tire on lap 48, and then Kurt Busch-Tire would push Rex Revler back on lap 48, and then Kurt Busch-Tire would take the lead on lap 48, and then Rex Revler would be second as of lap 48. Where he wrecks Kurt Busch-Tire. Why? And then Kurt Busch-Tire, don't say that word! And then Kurt Busch-Tire would quit Piston Cup racing for the rest of the season. Brick Yardley would take the lead after the restart and lead until lap 55, where Lightning McQueen would retake the lead. He would lead for 4 more laps before losing the lead to Cal Weathers, who would lead until lap 63 before losing the lead to Carl Clutchen. He would lead for 6 laps before losing the lead to Speedy Comet, who would speedily pass him. And Speedy Comet would lead until lap 72, where Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading for 3 more laps before Bobby Swift would retake the lead. He would lead for 10 laps before Phil Tankson would take the lead on lap 85, leading for just 2 laps before Cal Weathers would take the lead for himself on lap 86, leading for 2 more laps before Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again, leading until lap 99, where Arthur Carstro would run out of gas on the track, and then after that, he would be out on lap 99. I feel bad for Arthur Carstro. And then Cal Weathers would take the lead after the restart and lead into lap 112, where Bobby Swift would retake the lead. He would lead for 5 laps before Rex Revler would take the lead from him, leading until lap 122. Meanwhile, on lap 121, Andrew Axler got the Garrison Motorsports engines back. Hooray for Andrew Axler! And then Bobby Swift would take the lead on lap 122 and lead until lap 129, where TG Castlenut would take the lead off of pit cycles. But on lap 132, Kyle Carson would be out because of engine failure. And then Jimmy Cables would take the lead after the restart and lead until lap 138, where he'd lose the lead to Cal Weathers, who would lead until lap 142. But on that lap, Carl Clutchen would retake the lead. He would lead for 3 more laps before losing the lead to Ralph Carlo, who would lead until lap 150 before losing the lead to Lightning McQueen, who would lead for 4 more laps before losing the lead to Bobby Swift, who would lead for 6 laps until lap 160, where he'd lose the lead to Terry Cargis. Terry Cargis would lead until lap 163 before losing the lead to Brick Yardley. Brick Yardley would lead for 5 laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading all the way until lap 175, where he'd lose the lead to Jimmy Cables. Jimmy Cables would lead for 4 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead once again, leading until lap 184, where Brian Sparks would take the lead for the first time this race, leading for 3 laps before losing the lead to Matthew Overdrive, who would lead for 2 laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead on lap 189. He would lead until lap 196 before Bobby Swift would retake the lead. He would only lead briefly though, because Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again a few yards later, and then lose the lead on lap 206 to Cal Weathers. Cal Weathers would lead for 3 more laps before Matthew Overdrive would take the lead off of pit cycles, and then lead until lap 212, where Jimmy Cables would take the lead once again. He would lead for 3 more laps before Brick Yardley would retake the lead. He would lead for 6 laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead. On lap 221, he would lead for 10 laps before Ernie Gearson would be 32nd as of lap 231, where he accidentally wrecks Ralph Carlo and himself. Now they're both out! Lightning McQueen would take the lead on lap 232 and lead for 8 laps before Brick Yardley would take the lead once again. He would lead until lap 245, and then Doug Throttleman would jump over Brick Yardley on lap 245. How? And then he takes the lead, leading until lap 249, where Phil Tankson would pass him on the inside for the lead, leading into lap 253, where Cal Weathers would retake the lead once again, leading into lap 258, where Speedy Comet would take the lead once again. He would lead all the way until lap 270, where Bobby Swift would retake the lead. He would lead for 6 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading for 2 more laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead. He would lead into lap 284, where once again, Bobby Swift would retake the lead. He would lead for 5 more laps before losing the lead to Jimmy Cables, who would lead into lap 293. But then, on lap 293, Darren Leadfoot would take the lead and lead for 2 laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead on lap 295. And then, Speedy Comet would take the lead once again on turn 3 and lead until lap 299, where Bobby Swift would retake the lead, leading for 8 more laps before Lightning McQueen would return to the lead. He would lead until lap 310, where Cal Weathers would take the lead once again. Cal Weathers would lead for 7 laps before going to pit, and then Reb Meeker would take the lead off of pit cycles. Later on lap 317, Cal Weathers would be back in the lead, leading until lap 320, where Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again, leading until lap 323 before Phil Tankson would retake the lead, and lead until lap 326, where Bobby Swift would take the lead once again and lead another 10 laps. On lap 336, Lightning McQueen would be back in the lead, and he would lead until lap 339, where Speedy Comet would take the lead once again, leading for 7 laps before Cal Weathers would retake the lead. He would lead for 2 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead once again, leading for 6 more laps. Bobby Swift would take the lead on lap 354 and lead for 3 laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading the field all the way until lap 362, where Cal Weathers would take the lead once again, leading for 7 laps before Brick Yardley would take the lead once again, leading until lap 370. Dino Draftski would take the lead briefly, but later on in lap 270, Carl Clutchin would take the lead, leading the field into lap 371. Later that lap, Cal Weathers would retake the lead, leading all the way until lap 376, where Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again. But on lap 383, Bobby Swift would retake the lead, leading for 3 more laps before Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again, leading until lap 397, where Jimmy Cables would take the lead once again. He would lead for 8 laps before Phil Tankson would retake the lead on lap 405. 4 laps later, Lightning McQueen would retake the lead. He would lead until lap 415, where Cal Weathers would take the lead once again, leading for 2 more laps before Bobby Swift would take the lead once again, leading until lap 418, where Cal Weathers would take the lead on that lap. Later in lap 418, Lightning McQueen would take the lead, but he would only lead for a few yards because Cal Weathers would retake the lead later that lap, and lead into lap 422, where Brick Yardley would take the lead once again. He would lead for most of the lap, but then, shortly before the lap ended, Jimmy Cables would take the lead, and then on lap 425, Lightning McQueen would retake the lead, leading into lap 427, where Bobby Swift would take the lead once again. But a few yards later, Matthew Overdrive would take the lead and lead into lap 428, where Cal Weathers would take the lead once again. He would lead for 4 more laps before Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again, leading for 2 more laps before Ricky Axel would take the lead once again, leading for 2 more laps before Brick Yardley would take the lead on lap 435, before losing the lead later that lap to Cal Weathers, who would lead for 8 more laps until lap 443, where Lightning McQueen would take the lead once again, losing the lead on lap 444 to Cal Weathers. Cal Weathers would lead for 4 more laps before Lightning McQueen would retake the lead on lap 448. And then he would take the white flag on lap 450. Cal Weathers would take the lead on the final lap, but then lose the lead to Lightning McQueen a few yards later. And then Cal Weathers would retake the lead once again on the final lap, and then Lightning McQueen would retake the lead once again and push forward. But Cal Weathers would push forward on the final lap, and then he will go on to win the 2016 Iowa Hybrid 450, getting his 35th career victory, and also winning 2 races in a row. Lightning McQueen would finish second this race and only lose by 5 feet. And here is an image of the photo finish. Bobby Swift would finish third this race, Brick Yardley fourth, Jimmy Cable's fifth, Phil Tankson sixth, Carl Clutchin seventh, Matthew Overdrive eighth, Ricky Axel ninth, and Terry Cargus rounding out the top 10. Dino Draftsky would be the last car to finish on the lead lap this race, finishing 33rd. Shannon Spokes said, "Great win today, Cal." And then Cal Weathers would say, "Thank you, Shannon. It was a great race. I was." And then Lightning McQueen's Pity Guido would inflate Cal Weathers' tires. And then Cal Weathers would say, Hey, Guido! And then the Dynaco Pitties would laugh at Cal Weathers' inflated tires. And then Guido would say, "Pit stop." The only word that we've really heard him say in English. And Cal Weathers would say, "Ha ha, laugh it up, real funny." And then some Lightning McQueen balloons would appear after the inflated tires. And here are the results of the race. As I already mentioned, the top 10, I don't need to say much. Before, who finished 11th this race? Rex Revler finished 11th this race, followed by Brian Sparks, TG Castlenut, Reb Meeker, and Buck Beeringly in the top 15. Jack DePost would finish 16th this race, followed by Paunchy Wipeout, Parker Breakston, Darren Leadfoot, and Doug Throttleman the Jumper. In 21st, we have Murray Clutchburn getting 100 more points, followed by Tommy Highbanks, Speedy Comet, who got unlucky again, Bruce Miller and Chip Gearings in the top 25, Marcus Cranksler, Todd Marcus, Rev Rodages, Lane Locke, and Dirksen Augustino rounding out the top 30, Floyd Mulvihill, Bobby Rotesta, and Dino Draftsky all finish on the lead lap this race. No cars finished a lap down, but some cars were unable to finish the race, mostly due to crashes and engine failures. There were so many engine failures this race! And here is the top 20 in points, with Cal Weathers still being in first, followed by Lightning McQueen, Bobby Swift, Jimmy Cables, and Brick Yardley. Kevin Carvick is 6th in points, followed by Kurt Bushtire, ahead of Martin Carrix Jr. and Phil Tankson. James Garrison, despite the terrible race, is still in the top 10 because Dale Earnhardt Jr. couldn't race in the race. And Doug Throttleman is still behind him in 12th, followed by Jack DePost, Ricky Axel, Carl Clutchin, who's in the same position as his number 15, followed by Murray Clutchburn, TG Castlenut, Kyle Carson, Bad Brad Karslowski, and Speedy Comet rounding out the top 20.
Remember to press the notifications button, which goes ring, ring, ring after you press it. And lightning strikes back, and that's as if you subscribed, of course. And thank you for watching this entire video.
The gap between the top 20 and 21st is wider than it was last week because Reb Meeker, the car currently in 21st, is 46 points behind Speedy Comet. I feel bad for Speedy Comet because Speedy Comet can't seem to get a win. He started at pole position 2 races in a row, and in the 2016 Dynaco Light 350, he was in the lead on the last lap. I really feel bad for Speedy Comet. He can never seem to get a win, although he spends a lot of time in the lead and also qualifies well. The next race of the 2016 Piston Cup season, the 11th race, the video covering that race, will be coming out soon enough. Unfortunately, the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine is still going on. The Ukrainian people just want to live in peace and have freedom, but this common dream was ruined by the tyrant and bully Vladimir Putin. Currently, Vladimir Putin's tyranny rules around 1/5 of Ukraine's land, including Crimea, the Donbass, and parts of the Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Kherson Oblasts. But Vladimir Putin doesn't have everything going his way, as Ukraine controls parts of Russia's Kursk Oblast. And in order for Vladimir Putin to try to turn the tide of the war, he is seeking North Korea's help. Hopefully it won't be enough to turn the tides of the war because of the tyranny in both Russia and North Korea. We do not want more tyrants ruling more land. Every day, it gets harder for Ukraine to win the war because of dwindling resources. We here at the K.A. Bullets Piston Cup YouTube channel stand with Ukraine in their struggle against Vladimir Putin's tyranny, and also recognize Ukraine's true borders as shown by this map, which include Crimea and the Donbass, as well as the other parts of Ukraine that are currently occupied by Vladimir Putin's tyranny. Slava Ukraini! Heroyam slava! Nechai Shvitsia daroretsia! Ukraini permoha! Glory to Ukraine! Glory to the heroes! May Ukraine be granted victory very soon!